Today, I want to take you back to April 25th, 1993, to the Lamport Auditorium at Yeshiva University, and to a room filled beyond legal capacity, mourning the death of one of the giants of Jewish history, Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik Zatzal. On that day, Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb, the president of Yeshiva, rose to the podium and delivered a magisterial tribute to the Rav, an overview of his life, place, and teachings, his inner struggles, and his great triumphs. And towards the end of his remarks, Rabbi Lamb spoke of the Rav's ability to prepare his Talmidim, his students, for their future roles as communal leaders. As he said, the Rav lived his interpretation of the injunction in Pirkei Avot of Ha'emidu Talmidim Harben, to proliferate students, literally to set up many students, as make a great effort to have your students stand on their own and not be permanently tied to your apron strings, which may also be the greatest achievement of Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb Zatzal, who passed away this week, a man who was a brilliant academic, a Talmid Chacham of renown, a Rav and a pastor, a family man and a leader, an orator perhaps after the Rav himself, the penultimate darshan of the 20th century, and the one who saved Yeshiva University from the brink of financial disaster, building it into the great Torah institution it is today, all while creating thousands of students who stood on their own. While I was never a student at Yeshiva University, I am fortunate to stand on the platform of his writings, his vision, and his thinking, and his Talmidim, the men and women who studied at Yeshiva during his 25-year tenure, people who he helped to stand on their own, are my colleagues, my friends and my peers in Jewish education in the rabbinate. And his passing is the end of an era, but not the end of an ideal. Ha'emidu Talmidim Harbe. Make a great effort to have your students stand on their own. That's a lesson in leadership to emulate, to create Talmidim and not Chasidim, to set foundations and let others build upon them, which may also be what God intended to convey at the beginning of this week's parashah, when he told Moshe Rabbeinu, Naso et Rosh b'nei Gershon gamhem, lift up the heads of the sons of Gershon, them too. Why lift up their heads? And why them too? Because there were three sons of Levi. And in last week's parashah, the middle son's family was honored with the task to transport the most sacred of articles from the Mishkan, the Aron Brit Hashem, the sacred Ark of the Covenant. And so this week, God turns to Moshe and tells him to task the eldest brother's family, the Bnei Gershon, with a responsibility as well, Gam Haim, in a similar fashion, with the same level of honor. Was that really a reasonable expectation? After all, the Bnei Gershon were assigned to carry the covers of the Mishkan and the draperies of the courtyard, precious items, but not the same as the Aron itself. How could God expect the Bnei Gershon to feel as honored as the middle brothers family, the Bnei Kahat. But that's why God said to Moshe, Naso et Rosh, lift up his head, build him up. Or as the Hasidic master of Tzvi Hirsch Miromanov taught, that God was telling Moshe to speak with them, help them, encourage them, raise them up, make them feel significant and needed. And therefore, Tzvi Hirsch taught that any future Jewish leader who fills the shoes of Moshe is mitzuveh v'omed, is constantly required l'romem rucham ula'ir datam, to lift the spirit and enlighten the minds of those who were excluded and removed. Said Rabbi Lamb, stand them up. Said God to Moshe, lift up their heads. And said Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch, lift up their spirits. This past week in the United States, we have witnessed an eruption in protest, triggered by the horrific cruelty of one sworn to protect and preserve, who callously murdered another, a man who pleaded for his life but was ignored. But this eruption was fueled not only by that act, but by generations of racism. The video of that murder, of George Floyd's murder, was painful to watch. Still millions did, which led to protests against police violence, racism, bigotry, and discrimination, all things that we, as believing Jews, should support. Because we too have been and continue to be the object of brutality and discrimination, bigotry and racism. And just as God commanded the Jews entering Israel to remember the widow, the orphan, and the stranger, ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim, because we historically shared in those experiences, we still share in those experiences. By all rights, we should be at the forefront of the fight for the rights of others. Yet not of all of our community recognizes the depth of the pain and the anguish felt by the other, by members of the Black, Brown, and Asian communities. Not all of our community feels the need to see every human being as being created b'tselem Elokim, in the image of God, no different than we are. Part of the reason is the age-old persecution we suffered at the hands of others, which led us not only to fear others, but also led us to accept disparaging remarks about others. Think of the Yiddish terms that we use for Gentile. And part of the reason is the bigotry of isolation, of living in our communities, our bubbles, and never venturing out beyond to meet and to interact with others. And part of the cause is the fear we feel as we witnessed riots, arson and looting, criminal acts that have caused so many to suffer and even more to wonder what's happened to our world, to our country, to our values. But in this day and age, all of those reasons are simply excuses. Excuses for accepting the unacceptable and perhaps even participating in the inexcusable. And what makes things ever worse is the absence of leadership who will stand up and guide us, heal the brokenness of this nation. Leadership who will speak out against violence without diminishing the message of compassion. Leadership that will unite us and remind us of a higher purpose. What makes things ever worse is the absence of leadership who will fulfill the challenge of Moshe Rabbeinu, l'romem rucham u'la'ir da'atam, to lift our spirits, illuminate our minds and the minds of those who have been excluded and removed. As faithful Jews, we need to confront the truth that absent such leadership, we must become the devoted students of Moshe Rabbeinu. We must be the ones who stand on our own. We must find ways to reach out, to understand more, and reject racism in our community, teach our children how to understand others, and find opportunities to prove to God that we accept our role as a chosen people who bear the charge to be a nation of faithful servants of the divine plan, a mamlechet kohanim. During the race riots of the 1960s, Rabbi Lamb justified the resentment felt for the criminals who had infiltrated the protesters, just as we find today. And yet, he wrote that this resentment against the few cannot be used as a pious disguise for xenophobia, fear, racial antagonism, and innate bigotry. Instead, like Avraham Avinu, he wrote, we must strive to put a bad conscience to use and judiciously strive for racial equality. Said Rabbi Lamb, stand them up. Said God to Moshe, lift up their heads. Said Reb Tzvi Hirsch Miriminov, lift up their spirits, especially those who have been excluded and removed. And now it's up to us to take a stand for good, to be leaders when leadership is nowhere to be found, to be the representatives of compassion, understanding, change, and goodness as God has charged us to be. It begins with the lessons we teach in our homes, expands outwards in the opportunities we provide and the respect we extend to those outside, and it continues onward to the voices we raise in protest to the wrongs that have existed much too long. May this past week help to bring about long overdue change in America, but may that change be brought about by peaceful actions and a deeper understanding of everyone who was created in the image of God, all of humanity. Shabbat Shalom.